maybe there is an there is an alien in the White House.
It's not impossible. Most of the races in our galaxy are humanoids. They're not exactly the same as we are. They're not put together exactly the same, but we're certainly first cousins.
Wrong side.
All right. Well, yep. Beautiful right here. Yep. Little seagull. I wonder if he'll have his new book ready.
Gentlemen,
Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm okay for a young fellow. How about yourself?
Good to see you again.
Likewise.
My Lord, look at this view.
Isn't it nice?
This is just even getting out of the car
Yeah.
and seeing the lake and how nice the temperature is down here. It's just wonderful.
Well, it's a beautiful spot. It's almost over. I had a filming yesterday morning for Geopolitics Watch.
Oh yeah.
We're trying to save the world.
It's huge what they're doing now. They put on an Alien Con, which is this month in Los Angeles, which had 20,000 people last year. 20,000 people. It's incredible.
Yes, I was the first Liberal cabinet minister in the history of the city of Toronto. The odds again, 15 to 1 against, but it happened. And there are huge problems facing the world today. And unfortunately, most people don't know that they even exist. I know. And again, getting involved in the research of these areas was a long shot. Could have been anybody. Didn't have to be me, but it was me. And so I've spent the last 14 years researching and studying and interviewing people and trying to find out what's going on and what has gone on in the last 70 years in the world and in the cosmos and the relationship between the two. Well, yes, I really was not into the ET and the UFO file at all. When I was minister, I had sighting reports. And on reflection, they were about the same as other countries' experience. About 80% of the sightings reports were natural phenomena, and about 15 or 20% were unidentified. So they fit the definition of unidentified flying objects. But I was too busy unifying the armed forces to spend much time on that file. Bob McNamara used to say he would tell me anything I wanted to know, but I didn't know the right questions to ask. So I finished that portfolio and got on my way without ever knowing a lot of the things that were going on. I don't know how much he would have told me, probably quite a bit at the time because we were quite close. But I wound up post-war with this file so far from my mind that it was way down on the list. And it was only, well, again, I'm not sure it was happenstance, but I seemed to be picked to just carry the banner for former public officials in the G8 and say that UFOs are as real as airplanes flying overhead. And I had to assure my bride of a week from the day that I went public that it was a one-off and so on, and she said, well, if you think it's important, go ahead. because I was afraid that the United States Air Force would have a habit of shooting first and asking questions after, would start shooting at the visitors from other planets and other star systems, and maybe get us into a galactic war at some stage. And the way things are working out over the last 14 years, my concern was, I think, very real, and I'm just as concerned today as I was then. I was encouraged to go into this field by a young man by the name of Pierre Junot, young bilingual chap from Ottawa, who started sending me stuff on the subject, and I told him honestly I didn't have time to read about it, worry about it. He said, "We'll put it on the shelf for a rainy day." He encouraged me to watch an ABC's special, 2 hours, put together by Peter Jennings, the late Peter Jennings of Ottawa. And so I did watch it, and there were former Air Force pilots, U.S. Air Force pilots, and former civilian pilots, air traffic controllers, policemen, all said they had seen UFOs. And after it, I had to say to myself, well, why would they lie? I mean, they're not getting paid to lie, surely. They must be telling the truth, but it was sort of put in the back crevice of my mind. Well, then Pierre had sent me a book called The Day After Roswell, and I said, that looks like a good read for my summer reading at the Rental Lodge, our little place in Muskoka. And in 2004, when I was going on my holidays, I couldn't find it. So I read The Life of Pi instead. Enjoyed it very much, but didn't know until it was near the end whether it was fact or fiction. 2005, I was looking for another book and couldn't find it. But there, staring me in the face, was The Day After Roswell. I was realizing that it was the real thing because I recognized the names of the generals of the airfields from my days in Ottawa. So I had already decided that it was true and it was the real thing. But hearing that the general had said so sounded like confirmation. But before going public, I decided I should get it from his lips personally. So I asked my nephew to give him a heads up that I was to call and to get his number for me, which he did. So I called him, and before I could even say, hello, how are you? He said, every word is true and more. And then he spent 20 minutes talking about the more to the extent that he could without breaking his oath to a great an extent. And the most important thing he said was, there have been face-to-face meetings between United States officials and visitors from other star systems, period. I think he respected me and felt maybe that it was good that I should have that information. Of course, the whole knowing anything about what's going on is dangerous information if you start talking about it. But in any event, I was convinced that I had to speak out, and that's when I decided to accept the outstanding invitation from Victor Vigiani and Mike Bird to go to their Exopolitics conference at the University of Toronto and say that airplanes are as real as at least that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. And I just thought it should be in the public domain. The American people should know what was going on because it was their money and their future, but it was also our future. Well, you have to be concerned, but at the same time, I'm 95 going on 96 years old. I've had a good life. I know what happens to people when they die, and I know that it's good, not bad. And so I'm not the least bit concerned about being bumped off, saying the worst thing they can do to me is kill me, and that would be a promotion in a way. So say your piece and accept the consequences, whatever they may happen to be. His commanding officer said, well, you go out and deal with this situation. And he said he marched out the door saying, I'm going to put an end to this nonsense once and for all. And of course, just instead of doing that, he wound up having his life changed forever. And that's the kind of evidence that, I would say is 100%. I think it's part of the game. They're not telling us the whole truth. They're telling us selected truths. They're telling us convenient truths, just enough to say to us, there is a problem and we need more money to build more ships to cope with the problem. The problem is an imaginary one that they're conning us with, and that is that we have something to fear from the extraterrestrials, when in fact, they are the problem. The cabal that is running the United States and has been for decades and running much of the world has plans for what they call a New World Order, which sounds like a utopia, but when you get through the fog, it is what they intend to do is a world government, unelected, a fascist government of, by, and for them, at the expense of all of the rest of the people.
And then one of his army compatriots said, or he could be in the White House, and they all laughed. So I'm thinking, well, the way things are going in the States now, maybe there is an alien in the White House.
It's not impossible. Most of the races in our galaxy are humanoids. They're not exactly the same as we are. They're not put together exactly the same, but we're certainly first cousins. And you, if you were meeting one on the street, you'd never guess, unless you were very, very sensitive, that it was anybody except somebody from downtown or uptown or somewhere else. But when you start going outside the galaxy, then you get more insectoids, and you get the short grays and the long, tall grays and all these other forms that look different. And they're all part of the same creation, but they have evolved in different ways from different beginnings, and consequently don't look the same.
They will be living amongst us. In your experience over the years, have you come across any information on that?
Well, yes and no. Yes, that this was really implied in the deal that was made between the United States and the Greys, that they could abduct a certain number of people. They haven't quite lived up to the agreement because they don't report what they do. But so they have been doing this, and some of the estimates of the number of people that they have abducted worldwide are just astronomical. And it gets you into the question of creating a new race, a new hybrid race with greater IQs than we have, and so on. And this has been going on, well, for quite a long while now. But this isn't the first time in the galaxy or the cosmos that this has happened, and certainly I think we are partly hybrids of a different sort. It's just that our genetic makeup is different than it was in the days of the Neanderthals, and probably different than it will be at some future time. And that seems to be the way the cookie crumbles, as they say. So you have to help save the world for your own use and benefit. And if you don't do it, no one will, because your elders are so entrenched in their ways that they will put their own financial benefits ahead of saving the world and ahead of saving your future. And that is wrong, morally and otherwise. So go to it and make sure that the word spreads that we have to do these things. We have to use zero-point energy right away. We have to convert the world economy from oil to zero-point energy immediately, hopefully in 5 years. But certainly the Paris account, that's political play. That's just for show. And you forget all that stuff and get on with the job. But it means a total revolution in the thinking, and it has to start with the young people, because it's certainly not going to start with the people who are running the show today.